It was Tuesday, June 4th. San Diego was already warm, a steady 71 degrees Fahrenheit before 8 a.m., and the ocean breeze hadn't made it far inland yet. The sky had that pale, washed-out look it gets when the heat creeps in early. I parked my silver Tacoma on 3rd and Cedar, 2 blocks from the office, same spot I'd used for years. The same oil stain greeted me under the left tire. The day began like hundreds before it. I walked into Seaside Mutual, nodded to Linda at reception, grabbed my usual from the break room, black Guatemala Antigua, splash of cinnamon, and climbed the stairs to my corner of the second floor. 18 years of loyalty, most of it in that same chair, at the same desk, beneath the same buzzing fluorescent light. I was 52. My name's Michael Barrett, and for nearly 2 decades I was the quiet guy who handled liability portfolios for construction clients. Not flashy. Not political. I wasn't at the bar with the young guys after work, but I trained half of them. Some of them called me the anchor. Others just sent their rookies to me when things broke. What kept me grounded wasn't the job. It was the idea that stability meant something. My wife, Lauren, worked just across the courtyard in a CPA firm. We'd been married 19 years, lived in Chula Vista, no kids, 1 dog, a lazy black lab named Diesel who slept through earthquakes. Our life wasn't exciting, but it worked. Or so I thought. By 9:12 a.m., everything shifted. Brent, the new VP of Operations, all swagger and spreadsheets, called me into conference room C. I thought it was about the logistics audit I'd submitted last week. He didn't even look up when I entered. Just gestured to the chair and pushed a file toward me. "We're consolidating the department," he said. "Nothing personal. Just realignment. You understand." I didn't say a word. I just looked at the manila folder, my name on the tab. Inside were final papers, signatures, Cobra info, a paragraph on return of equipment protocol. There was a pen already uncapped on the table. He'd expected me to sign quickly, quietly, and walk away. But what hit me wasn't the job. It was the number, a specific one, buried in the back page. "This settlement excludes participation in the 2024 retention bonus program." 3 days. I was 3 days away from my full retention bonus, $42,000 before tax, part of a 5-year employee incentive plan they rolled out in 2019. And now I was being cut loose on a Tuesday morning with no warning, just a smile and a legal escape hatch. I looked up. Brent still wasn't making eye contact. He said, "You've been here a long time, Mike. I know this isn't easy." I answered, "No. It isn't." I didn't argue. I didn't threaten or raise my voice. I signed. I walked out past the cubicles, where younger guys were still clicking away, too busy to look up. Past the kitchenette where I'd fixed the same jammed microwave twice in the last 6 months. Past the break room fridge that still held my lunch, turkey on rye, no mayo. At 9:34 a.m., I stepped into sunlight. I stood by my truck, keys in hand, coffee cold in the cup holder. And something didn't sit right. Not just the numbers. Not just the timing. Something else. On instinct, I texted Brian, the only guy in HR I halfway trusted. "Hey. You free today? Something feels off." He didn't reply. At 11:17 a.m., I was home. Lauren's car, a silver Lexus ES, was already in the driveway. She usually worked until 4. Inside, the air smelled faintly of her perfume. Vanilla, with something sharper underneath. The kind of scent that lingered on collars. She was in the shower when I walked in. I heard music playing, jazz, something mellow, and the water running. I didn't say anything. I sat at the kitchen table, paperwork spread in front of me, a pen rolling slowly across the tile. The silence was thick. And for the first time in years, I started counting backwards. Meetings missed, late nights at work, calls she took in the other room. Then I saw it. On the counter by her keys was a small, square gift box. It wasn't for me. It held a corporate-branded bottle of whiskey, one I recognized, the same kind we used to give premium clients. Only Seaside Mutual ordered those. I opened the fridge. Next to the oat milk, I found a folded note. Not addressed to me. No name. Just a line. Let's not wait till next week. Tonight's perfect. To be continued. He crossed me out 3 days before my bonus. She erased me in one night. Either of them realized. I'd already started my list. By Wednesday morning, the silence had shape. It wasn't absence, it was movement without sound. Lauren had stopped asking me anything. No. How are you? No. Did you sleep? She filled the kitchen with noise, blenders, running water, dishes, but it all felt choreographed. Noise to cover something else. I said I was going out for groceries. She didn't ask what for. In the parking lot of the Ralphs on Broadway, I sat in the truck with the receipt from Monday still in my back pocket. Not mine, hers. I'd found it tucked behind a takeout menu when I was reaching for the phone charger in the kitchen drawer. It was for a place called the Marine Room, oceanside dining, pricey, reservation only. The timestamp, Monday night, 8:17 p.m. 2 entrees. 1 wine. She told me she was working late. At 11:12 a.m., I drove to her office building and parked across the street, where the food truck guys stand on Fridays. No tinted windows. I didn't care. I watched. She came out at 12:03 for lunch. Alone. She looked like herself, black blazer, fitted slacks, ponytail. But she kept looking down at her phone, like she was texting someone she wasn't supposed to smile at in public. She walked toward the cafe on the corner, the one with the blue umbrellas. I waited. Then I saw him. Mid-40s, tall, athletic, light suit, no tie. He didn't follow her. He was already inside. She looked both ways before entering. And for a moment through the glass, I saw her smile like I hadn't seen in years. I didn't take a picture. Not yet. I just watched. She came home that evening at 6:41. I was already at the table, flipping through mail I didn't care about. She set down her bag, kissed me on the cheek, a formality. She said, "Long day." I answered, "Looks like it." She paused for half a second. That was the tell, the millisecond of processing whether that was a normal comment or a loaded one. Then she moved on, opening the fridge, pulling out wine. The bottle from the Marine Room receipt. She poured a glass. Not for me. That night I checked her car. I'd never done that before. I told myself I was looking for the umbrella she always misplaced. But when I opened the back door, I wasn't surprised by what I found. 2 used napkins from the Marine Room. A mint box branded with the restaurant logo. A parking stub from the nearby valet garage. And tucked beside the seatbelt socket, a man's sunglasses. Not mine. They were black Ray-Bans. Slightly scratched on the left lens. She doesn't wear sunglasses. She has transitions. And she never lets people ride in the back seat. I took a photo of everything. Then I put it all back, exactly how it was. Thursday, I called Dave, my neighbor. Not close, just the kind of man who knew which car belonged to whom on the block. We bonded once over jumper cables and aging backs. I asked, "You ever see a Lexus here during the day?" "Mine, I mean," he said. "Yours?" "Sure. But there was a black BMW in your spot a few times last week. Thought you had a visitor." "I didn't," he added. "Tall guy. Nice suit. Parked like he owned the place." I thanked him. That night, Lauren said she was tired. Went to bed early. She didn't kiss me goodnight. I stayed at the kitchen table. The receipts, photos, timestamp notes, all spread out. Patterns were forming. But something still didn't click. That's when I remembered the office whiskey, the one I found in our kitchen on Tuesday. It had a small metal tag on the neck, with an engraving I missed the first time. Client Appreciation, TJ. I'd seen those initials before. Back when I was still working. But where? I opened my old inbox. Seaside hadn't revoked my email access yet. I typed TJ into the search bar. Dozens of results. Meeting invites. Shared client notes. Financial briefings. All CC'd to one name. Tyler Jennings. The man who took my desk before it went cold. To be continued. He took my job. Now he was parking in my driveway. I wasn't ready to confront him. But I was ready to follow him. Friday came with fog. The kind that hangs over the bay and wraps the streets in silver, making headlights look like ghosts. I didn't go to the grocery store. Didn't walk the dog. I sat in my truck 3 blocks from Lauren's office, watching the entrance like it owed me answers. At 8:06 a.m., she walked out in a light coat I hadn't seen before. Not new. Just unfamiliar. Beige fitted sharp. Like something bought for someone else's opinion. She got into her Lexus. I followed. Not close enough to draw attention. Just close enough to see where she turned. She drove past the highway entrance, past her usual coffee stop, and onto Harbor Street, toward the marina. The car parked behind a row of sailboats. She stayed inside. At 8:31, a black BMW pulled up. Driver's side door opened. Tall man. Light suit. No tie. Same profile as before. He got into her car without knocking. They didn't drive off. They sat there. Windows up. Faces close. Her hand moved once, toward his face or neck, I couldn't tell. I took 2 photos. Nothing dramatic. Just time-stamped stillness. They left at 9:05. Separately. She went back toward the office. He turned the other way. That night, I didn't say a word. She cooked pasta, opened a bottle of red, poured 1 glass. She said, "How was your day?" I answered, "Unfinished." She tilted her head, like the word caught her off guard. But didn't ask more. We watched something on Netflix. She scrolled her phone through most of it. At 10:47, she said she had an early meeting. Went to bed. No kiss. Just soft footsteps on hardwood, then silence behind the door. I stayed up. I opened the laptop and searched Tyler Jennings, LinkedIn, corporate bios, public filings. He was exactly who I remembered. But one thing stood out. He wasn't just the new department head. He was listed as Strategic Partner Liaison, which meant he had direct contact with all high-value external firms. One of which was Fairpoint Finance, Lauren's employer. Now it made sense, the branded whiskey bottle, the casual tone, the meetings. They weren't just lovers. They were professionally entangled. The next morning, I opened Lauren's laptop. She never changed her passwords. I wasn't snooping, not in the dramatic movies on TV way. I opened only one thing, her browser history. 2 things stood out. She'd searched how to change retirement beneficiary without spouse knowing. She'd spent 32 minutes on a private client portal, Fairpoint's high-yield account system. Lauren wasn't just having an affair. She was moving money. That Saturday afternoon, I visited Carl Maddox. Carl wasn't a lawyer, but he used to be a state investigator, the kind of man who wore denim shirts and read too much. We hadn't talked in months, maybe more. But he owed me a favor from a long time ago. He said, "You got questions or you got evidence?" I said, "Both." He poured coffee black. No small talk. I showed him the photos. The receipts. The export of Lauren's search history. The timeline of my termination and the withheld bonus. He leaned back. He said, "You know what this is, Mike?" I said nothing. He said, "It's not just betrayal. It's coordinated. Possibly criminal. And you're sitting on proof they don't know you have." Then he asked, "You want to go nuclear, or you want to be smart?" I answered, "I want both." To be continued. I'd followed her to the edge. Now I knew how far the fall really was. And I wasn't the one standing there alone. Carl handed me an old voice recorder. Not some high-tech spy gear, just a slim, matte black device with 1 button and 14 hours of memory. He said, "Stick it where she won't look. Then disappear from the room." I placed it behind the cookbooks on the kitchen shelf, between Italian for two and heart-healthy meals for the busy wife. She never touched those. Too sentimental. The next 2 days passed in tight routines. Lauren moved through the house like nothing had changed, except she didn't ask why I wasn't job hunting. She didn't ask anything. She just assumed I was adjusting. That Sunday, we had dinner at home. Her phone lit up 3 times during the meal. Each time she ignored it, but didn't flip its screen down like she used to. At 11:03 p.m., she went to bed. I waited 10 minutes. Pulled the recorder. Listened. Most of it was quiet. Footsteps. The fridge. But then, around 7:26 p.m., her voice, low and steady. She said, "Don't be paranoid, Tyler. He doesn't suspect anything. He's too proud to dig." Silence. Then laughter, not hers. His. She said. "The money's already in the private fund. He never asked about the accounts. He's stuck in the past." Another pause. She said, "Once the divorce is filed, it's clean. I get half and the bonus he never saw." I didn't listen to the rest. The next morning I called Carl. He said, "It's go time." We spent the day drafting a timeline, cross-referencing email dates, matching bonus program rules with the exact firing date. Carl had an old contact at Cal Benefits Legal, a watchdog group that had taken down 3 corporations for pension fraud. He said they'd love this case. Meanwhile, I logged into my old company dashboard. My credentials were still active. HR hadn't purged my records yet, or noticed. I found my performance reviews, all glowing, and the signed bonus eligibility form with Brent's signature from last year. Then I found something else. A new staff memo from 2 weeks ago. Subject line: Department reorg, effective immediately. It listed new titles and shifts. One name stood out. Tyler Jennings, Director, Strategic Corporate Integration. His start date, listed as 2 weeks before my firing. The position didn't exist before. They created it for him. They created it while I was still working. At 6:12 p.m. that evening, Lauren asked what I wanted for dinner. I said, "Nothing heavy. Something clean." She smiled, opened the fridge, pulled out salmon and greens. She said, "You okay? You've been quiet." I answered, "Just thinking." She didn't press. But I could tell, something in her was starting to itch. Monday morning, I received a blocked call. Male voice. Calm but forced. He said, "I don't know what you think you're doing, Mike. But if you come after her or me, you're going to regret it. Just move on. Take the check, live your life." I didn't answer. He said, "You start making noise, you'll find out just how replaceable you really were. At work. At home." I hung up. 2 minutes later, a message arrived from Carl. "Found your HR file. They forged your start date. You're shorted by exactly 3 days. 3 days. Just like the bonus. Just like she said." I didn't feel rage. I felt the gears click into place. To be continued. He threatened me like I had nothing left. She laughed like I'd never do a thing. They forgot I'd spent 18 years watching people crack under pressure. And I never made a sound. Tuesday, 9:38 a.m. Carl filed the complaint with the California Department of Labor. 3 USB drives. Full timeline. Documents. Audio. Emails. Everything that proved what Seaside Mutual had done, not just to me, but likely to others. It was out of my hands now. But I wasn't done. That afternoon, I called a number from a business card I'd kept for years. Janine Carter, financial officer at Fairpoint Finance, the company Lauren worked for. We met at a client event years ago, a brief handshake and small talk about audit season. I didn't tell her who I was. I just said, "I have reason to believe one of your employees is moving client-linked funds unethically. I can provide documentation." She said, "Send it anonymously. If it checks out, internal review will follow." I packaged the documents, fake return address, neutral language. Not just proof of the affair, screenshots of fund movements Lauren accessed, her search history, her logged-in sessions from home IP addresses. No anger. No commentary. Just facts. The next morning, I noticed her rhythm change. She paced while brushing her teeth. Checked her phone 3 times before leaving. At breakfast, she asked, "Are you sure you're okay?" I said, "Why wouldn't I be?" Her eyes narrowed briefly. She knew something felt off, but couldn't name it. Yet. I drove past her office at 1:14 p.m. Her Lexus was in the lot. Next to it, the BMW. Again. I didn't stop. Instead, I drove to Dave's house, the neighbor who'd seen that same BMW parked in my driveway. He opened the door in sandals and an old Padres cap. I asked, "That car you saw before, ever see them together?" He nodded. "Once. They were arguing. Real low voices, hands moving a lot. Like a breakup. Then they hugged. Real long." "When was that?" "Few weeks ago. Before all this, I guess." So this wasn't new. They weren't in the middle of something. They were deep in it. Thursday morning, Carl called. "They fast-tracked the case. You're not the only one. They've already flagged 2 other terminations like yours. They're calling it a pattern. Will it go to court? If they're smart, they'll settle. If not, federal hearing, open record." By evening, Lauren was different. She opened wine without offering me a glass. Asked vague questions about my plans. Then, out of nowhere, she said, "You know, if things don't feel right between us, maybe we should take some space." I answered, "You already have." She stared at me. She said, "What does that mean?" I said, "Let's not pretend." Her eyes sharpened. But she didn't say another word. She went upstairs and didn't come back down. The next day, a letter arrived. From a private legal firm. Not addressed to me by name. Just, "Resident." Inside, a divorce notice. Preliminary. Not official. She hadn't filed. She just consulted. It was a signal. 1 hour later, I sent another anonymous package. This time, to HR at Fairpint. To be continued. She thought she was warning me. But she didn't know I'd already closed her exits. And her name was now on a compliance radar. Mine was already in the clear. Monday morning, 8:42 a.m. Lauren left for work in silence. No eye contact. No goodbye. At 9:17, Carl called. "They're cracking. Department of Labor escalated to federal level. This morning's paper mentions the case, not by name, but Seaside Mutual's listed as under investigation for systematic pension misrepresentation. And me? You're the whistleblower. Protected class. No public ID." I opened the news site. Front page, business section. Title: 3 employees fired days before retirement. Is Seaside cleaning house unlawfully? They didn't mention Lauren. Not yet. That changed on Wednesday. At 2:38 p.m., I got a text from a number I didn't know. "Mike. It's Janine Carter. From Fairpint. I don't know what you sent us. But internal compliance opened a full audit on Lauren. She's under review. Thought you'd want to know." I didn't reply. That evening, Lauren came home late. Her lipstick was faded, hair pulled tight, but the look in her eyes said everything. Not fear. Pressure. She said, "Rough day." I said, "They happen." She opened her mouth like she wanted to say something. But didn't. She poured a drink. Sat in silence. I stayed in the chair by the window, watching dusk settle over the cul-de-sac. At 7:46 p.m., she asked, "Did you talk to anyone from Fairpint?" I said, "Not recently." She stared. She didn't believe me. But she couldn't prove it. Thursday, Carl confirmed the next wave. DOJ requested internal communication logs from Seaside. Emails, chat logs, HR systems. This is no longer a company issue. It's becoming criminal. He paused. Also, your file was updated. How? They restored your start date. Full benefits eligibility. Effective retroactively. No calls. No apologies. Just quiet corrections under legal pressure. That was enough. But I wasn't done. That night, Lauren's phone buzzed 3 times in a row. She never moved. The screen lit up. Tyler J. I watched her ignore it. Then delete the thread. She was losing him, too. I printed a final envelope. No return address. No threats. Just a full printout of all financial transfers from Lauren's activity on the Fairpoint client system, paired with internal logs I'd pulled using her own browser credentials. I sent it to Fairpoint's Board of Ethics, marked Compliance Anomaly, Internal Source. The next morning, Lauren didn't go to work. She sat at the kitchen table, both hands wrapped around a cold mug. She said, "They suspended me. Pending investigation." "You wouldn't know anything about that, would you?" I looked at her. I said, "They probably just want the truth." Her eyes searched mine. But I'd already stopped being the man she thought she could manipulate. I was something else now. To be continued. They thought silence meant weakness. But silence is just a room without exits. And they were locked inside it. While I held the key. 2 weeks later, I got the letter. Stamped and formal. Full pension benefits reinstated. Bonus awarded retroactively. Additional compensation, $185,000. Paid in full. No apology. No explanation. Just numbers, which suited me fine. I deposited the check and never looked back. That same week, Tyler Jennings resigned. Publicly, it was called a voluntary transition. Privately, Carl confirmed he'd been named in a federal employment fraud review, using company infrastructure to undermine contractual retirement agreements. Lauren's name appeared next. A leaked internal memo from Fairpoint showed she was placed on administrative leave indefinitely. Audit flagged 2 unauthorized transfers. Client funds. Tracing back to her login credentials. Her lawyer reached out to me once, some vague line about shared marital resources and amicable exit terms. I didn't answer. Instead, I forwarded everything to my attorney. The divorce finalized in silence. No alimony. No split assets. She walked away with her Lexus, a few clothes, and her silence. She left the house on a Sunday. Didn't say goodbye. Didn't leave a note. I watched her drive off from the window. She never looked back. By July, Seaside Mutual was under federal supervision. HR gutted. 2 board members out. 5 other former employees filed matching claims, same firing pattern, same stolen pensions. Carl said the DOJ was building a wall around them. I didn't ask for updates after that. I'd already moved on. I spent the rest of the summer fixing up the garage. Built a small workbench. Refinished 2 old radios I'd been putting off for years. Took walks with Diesel. Slept well for the first time in months. No more receipts. No more recordings. No more waiting for someone to lie. Just clean air and long, quiet mornings. A local news crew knocked once. Wanted an interview. The man who took on a corporation and exposed a fraud. I said no. I wasn't a hero. I just didn't like being lied to. My daughter called that weekend. She lives upstate, didn't know most of what happened until it was over. She said, "Dad, you really didn't say anything through all of it?" I answered, "I didn't need to. They made all the noise for me." Subscribe if you want more stories about real men who don't scream. They act. Coldly. To the end. What city are you watching from? Drop it in the comments.